Hi guys, welcome to my newest video. Today I'm going to be looking at a few new game pickups that I've made recently. I've borrowed this concept from the Happy Console Gamer. I think it's just a good idea because I do buy games quite frequently, so to talk about them, in a sort of short form video, I think would be quite a good idea. So to start with, I've picked up Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb for the original Xbox. Like everyone else, I recently watched the Xbox Developer Direct, and the standout of the show for me was definitely Indiana Jones. I think it looks like they've really managed to capture the essence of Indiana Jones, with the plot, the travel around the world, the over-the-top evil villain, all of it really. When I first saw it transition into first person, I wasn't quite sure about that perspective for an indie game. I know of Machine Games' history and how they developed the Wolfenstein games, which are kind of the perfect prelude to making an indie game like this. First person games where you fight Nazis. But I think I was just expecting something like the old indie games, like The Infernal Machine, which I played on PC back in the day, but I was unable to finish as I wasn't good enough at it. I think I was, 7 years old when that came out. But I've since rewatched the trailer a few times, and I have to say I'm on board with everything they're doing with it here. I like the transitions from first to third person for certain elements in the environment, and I've come around on the first person point of view. I think it's a good perspective for conveying the scale of the temples and the places that you'll visit as Indiana. I think the presentation of the video was amazing as well. The graphics, I think they've made a really convincing representation of Harrison Ford and the areas, and it looks like it's going to have really enjoyable puzzles as well. In terms of the actors, I didn't actually know it was Troy Baker at first, and I was trying to work out who it was. I was convinced obviously it wasn't Harrison Ford because it's a younger version of Indiana Jones, but Troy Baker was doing a really good impression of Harrison Ford. He had me almost fooled at one point. So I think everything looks great and up to scratch with this game, and I think it looks like a really high-end effort production, and I'm really looking forward to it. That said, having watched the trailer, it gave me a massive itch to play an Indiana Jones game. I looked at Fate of Atlantis, which I haven't played before, but it's not really the same vibe. I do like point-and-click adventures, but having watched this trailer, I kind of wanted more of an action-adventure game. I thought about The Infernal Machine, but it's so old now, I don't think it would hold up very well playing it today. So I've gone for Emperor's Tomb, and I'm looking forward to giving it a whirl, as I've never tried it before. But I have seen lots of gameplay of it recently on sort of IGN videos and people talking about the Xbox Direct. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that one. Robocop Rogue City. This one was on John Linneman's top 5 games for Digital Foundry, and I'm a really big fan of Digital Foundry, so I really respect what they say, and I sort of stand up and listen when they say things about games. And this is something actually I was thinking about the other day, and I find myself really in the mood for something like this. A kind of AA first-person shooter with a shorter runtime, which I can kind of slot in between RPGs and, longer story-based games. I think looking at Robocop Rogue City, I've watched a few trailers, and I watched John Lennon's video. Graphical quality aside, which I do think this game looks really good. I think it's Unreal Engine 5. This is a compliment. This looks like a game that you would have found on the 360 or the PS3, and I think games just aren't made this way anymore. I kind of liken it to a film I saw in the summer with my dad, which was a sci-fi film, and the name eludes me, and I could look it up, but I don't think I'm going to bother. But basically that film felt like something that would have released in the early 2000s, around the sort of iRobot Minority Report time. New IP, or kind of, a bit random specific IP, which big studios nowadays don't want to take a risk on. And I feel like that's probably the case with Robocop Rogue City. And so I'm really intrigued to play this one, and I think it was probably going to be, an 8 to 10 hour, play it once and you're done with it, but I'm happy with that. And, there aren't enough AA games anymore. I think we have a lot of indie games, we have a lot of AAA massive releases. That middle ground is kind of got lost in the haze, I think, probably because it's probably too much of a financial investment and not enough of a financial reward, and it might be too much of a risk for companies to take. Anyway, I'm going to play this one later. I'm looking forward to it. Super Mario RPG. I got this for my birthday from my dad. I hadn't played the original, but I've heard people talk about it. I know it's the first Mario RPG, and it was made by Squaresoft. And as I'm a big fan of sort of Squaresoft RPGs, I've always been intrigued by this one. I've put about 4 hours into the game, and it's a lovely little game with simple mechanics and satisfying sort of button prompts, which make the turn-based combat a bit more interesting. I think the remaster itself, having not played the original, I've seen photos. The graphics are really well done. It runs at 60 FPS. There are occasional frame rate drops into the low 50s, but on the whole, I think it runs really well. And the art is fantastic. It's really colourful, and it really pops on the OLED Switch. As with any of the Mario games, I think, the story isn't really what you play a Mario game for, but I feel like Square were kind of given a license with this game to make it a bit weird. They've obviously invented some characters, and there are some, areas with, I'm only 4 hours in, but already, the tadpole piano moment and things like that, and the frog sage, and, the companion characters are a bit weird, and I don't think I've seen them in another Mario game before, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing Super Mario RPG. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. So this is a game that came up in several end-of-year lists that I was watching on YouTube, and I saw that there was a physical release in the UK for quite cheap. I think it was about £25, so I ordered it. And it's kind of a cross between Jet Set Radio, Tony Hawk, and I guess a beat-em-up, because there is combat. The combat is probably the worst thing about it, really. It has a nice graphical style which mixes street art with cell shading, and the soundtrack is really cool, for lack of a better word. I know it sounds really lame saying that, but it's kind of hip-hop and funk and electronic sort of all mixed in one. You can use skateboards, rollerblades, BMXs, and it's all really well done. The controls are really good. I think any game that lets you move rapidly through the map but maintains tight controls for the player gets an instant nod of approval from me. I think more games need to empower players with good movements, and I think this one does it really well. Although, having said all that, you can definitely tell this is a lower budget game in some areas. Facial animations and texture detail, that kind of thing. Obviously those are things that don't really matter in this kind of game anyway, and it performs quite nicely on the Switch, which is where I'm playing it. Overall, I'd say Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is definitely worth a look if you're into kind of Tony Hawk or sort of Jet Set Radio, that kind of thing. Octopath Traveler 2. I've just started a run through of Octopath 2, playing as Particio the Merchant. I really wasn't much of a fan of the first one. I think I tried it out, and I think it was the disjointed narratives which didn't really circle around and meet in the middle at the end. I think maybe they did, but I didn't completely finish it, but there was a kind of weird vibe to it where the party members weren't interacting, which is, one of the main things that you look for in a JRPG. I think I know people have said that if you get through to the end, there is some kind of payoff, but I think it was quite a lot of investment to ask to get people to do that, really. But I was listening to the MinMax podcast, and Kelsey Lewin was really gunning for this game, and it made me want to give it a try, so I picked it up. I actually picked this one up in New York when I was there over Christmas. It's a bit of a funny story. I went to the Nintendo store to try and find a copy, which I had to queue quite a long time for, and I went in, and it turns out the Nintendo store has a really poor selection of Nintendo games. I ended up finding my copy in GameStop? It's in Brooklyn. Anyway, yeah. Everyone says this is better by far than the first one, and while the first few hours haven't really got me hooked, I can see the jump in quality, even when compared to Triangle Strategy, which was a more recent release. Square, I think, have really perfected their HD 2D style, and I know it sounds weird, but one of my favourite things is just at night in the game, walking around holding a lamp. I think it just looks beautiful with the dark colour palette. On a side note, I really loved Triangle Strategy, and I'm going to have to do a review of that someday. But then, I'm much more of a tactics person than a turn-based person, but that's just me. Anyway, I think because I've got Super Mario RPG on the go, and Persona 3 Reload is just around the corner, I think Octopath Traveler 2 is unfortunately going to have to go on the back burner for now. It might be one I'll finish later on in the year. And that's my video. Thanks for listening. It's a short one today. But I'm going to do this more frequently because I do pick up games quite regularly. So I've always got stuff to talk about with a regular cadence. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you like the video, please give it a like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Thank you very much.